Right then. So we've just got back from the Nürburgring and Spa. What we're going to talk about now, if everything went to plan, which it never seems to, we'd have been talking about it beforehand, probably under a little bit more stress than we are now, but the trip's over and done with. The cars arrived back in one piece, and we're really happy with how things went. It's still scruffy, absolutely caked in bits of tyre from both tracks. There's loads of dead critters all strewn all over it. I think that's probably because they don't use as many pesticides in Europe as we do, but maybe they do, don't know, but there's just bugs everywhere. We've done nothing with the car, we've not even had it in a ramp and had a look at it. We just drove it straight over. Scott went home in it, and then we drove it onto the dyno this morning. And yeah, it's done some good power. So the last video, as far as tuning is concerned, left off where we put the bigger injectors in, the stage ones, that were around 360 horsepower, and the clutch just started slipping like mad. So we had to peg that back down to 310. We took it to Donington Park, did what we were doing, went for a run around the track, and it was surprising, to say the least. We were really happy. The power obviously lacking. Still fast. The times were about 4 or 5 seconds away from RB for race car, which, to say we're running on Nanka and NS2Rs, which are not considered the best dry weather tyre, versus like 888s to do them decent times in RB for. We're really happy considering the power to weight ratio on this were down, so compared to the beef. So really, really happy with how the car handled. We knew it'd do what we needed it to do. So we got back from Donington. We had just over a week, it worked out, a week and 3 days to get the car ready. We'd not really got anything other than the gearbox tune to sort out, really. Or so we thought. We've got loads of customer cars booked in, and everybody wanted everything done before the Easter breaks. Everybody wants to use the cars to do some bank holiday driving around. So we didn't have as much time as we wanted on the car. So eventually we got around to sorting the clutch issue, which just turned out to be some adaptations that we had to do after we'd flashed the gearbox tune. That took a bit of time to get where we wanted it. Now we know how it's done. It's still painful, but it can be done. But we got that sorted, run the car up on the dyno, and we got over 400 horsepower. Hallelujah, we've got what we need. The clutch is not slipping. Let's get it off, get some miles done on it, take it on the road. So we took it on the road, drove really nice. Scott went home in it, absolutely fine, parked it up, sent some messages on the WhatsApp group. We're all good to go. We've got a few days to spare. Decided he wanted to go out for another drive, and because he'd not put as many miles on as he maybe could have done. Went for a run, just taking it steady, a little bit of throttle, went for it, started wheel spinning, which in a Quattro at 50 mile an hour was a bit strange. Turned out the gearbox oil cooler that we put on exploded, basically, and just dumped all the gearbox oil all over the tyres. Lucky he caught it, no real harm done. Got it back to the workshop, so this was Thursday morning. Bearing in mind we're going to the Nürburgring, to Spa should I say. Scott, we're going to Spa Good Friday. Got it into the workshop, we looked at the oil cooler and how we'd mounted it and how it failed, it like sort of expanded. We said, has he hit something? The bumper got a bit of damage underneath. But this oil cooler had been on for over a week at this point. It'd done the track day. They're not an expensive oil cooler, it's just a cheap one. So we just said, the only other option we've got is we'll put a more cal cooler on that we've got on the shelf. We just got it as part of a deal that we got with some other people. We never really run them on our cars, but we put that one on there, and we've got a fitting that we could put a a gauge in there and see what pressure it was running, because I just said, just to be sure, belts and braces, let's see what pressure we're running through this, because we have no trouble with the coolers on the other DSG gearboxes. Never had one split on an engine, which would probably run in 100 psi or something like that. Said it must be running more pressure than we think, or we've got a faulty cooler. So we put the Mocal one on, put the gauge in, but the gauge that we got wouldn't quite reach where we wanted it to go if we were going to drive it on the road. So we just put it straight on the dyno, ran it up, and we'd not even got through the first run, and it just sprayed oil absolutely everywhere. There's still bits around the floor now, it's just some here. Just seeping out from every orifice in dyno cell. But luckily, during that run, Matt was stood just in the right place to get oil squirted all over him and to see the pressure gauge, and it got up to 18 bar, which coincidentally is roughly where the clutch pressure is on these. So it's impossible that any of the other DSG gearboxes are running the clutch pressure through the cooler, or at least as far as we can tell, because we've had no trouble with them. There's loads of people produce kits for the DQ250s and DQ500s for the oil coolers, and they're not bursting them. So back to the drawing board. What can we do? It's Thursday, we're going to the track tomorrow. What can we do? So my only option was to put the, so bearing in this point now, we're nearly at lunchtime on Thursday. We need to let it cool down, clean all the dyno up, get it ripped off, put the old radiator back in that got the oil cooler heat exchanger inside of it, put that back in, put that on, get rid of all the transmission cooler. So we're compromising the trip already. Get the car back on the dyno, verify everything's behaving, road test it again, and then we're ready to go. Hopefully we've ended up wasting a full day that we could have done tying up a few loose ends that we had in the workshop. Just tidy up and go with no stress, but obviously that weren't to be. Put it back on the dyno, and then the car just weren't making power. Scratching his head, looking at everything. There were no logs that were showing us anything too interesting. Just went through everything we could possibly think of, doing all the output tests, and we did an output test in VCDS for there's a flap in the airbox, which is this one here. It's got a little solenoid valve on there that opens and closes it, and basically you're getting cold air from outside when this is closed, and if you're demanding full throttle, this should open and give you the full airflow, so that some of that air will be coming from the engine bay, which is obviously not ideal for efficiency, but it's, rather than being restrictive, that's how they've decided this is the best way to work. That weren't working, so we took that off. The next run, the power back, like, we've cracked it. This is what the problem was. Run it again, back down to 380, run it again, back to 360. Scratching around, looking at what we're doing, everything seemed fine. We did another couple of runs, then we had a look, and the EGT sensor had started to play up. This was last thing, Thursday night, nobody's open, we've not got a spare one, none that we got were the right one to fit on. So we just said we're going to have to come back in the morning and make a plan. So bearing in mind, Friday, this is when the car was meant to be setting off. It's a bank holiday, nobody was meant to be working. So we've got a good team of guys. Everybody came in who needed to. Got the car run up on the dyno. We figured out a workaround without disabling all the exhaust gas temperature monitoring stuff, which is our safety net when we're definitely going to be having coolant getting hotter than we wanted it to get to. And obviously not getting the monitoring of the EGT sensor that we wanted. So we come up with a plan, and we ended up having to settle for the power you can see here, the blue lines, so around 550 foot-pound of torque, 354 horsepower. So along with this, for this trip, because of all the trouble we had with the adaptations, all the issues we'd had with the cooler, we'd not quite got around to doing everything with the gearbox we wanted to do. The paddles still weren't behaving on track that we'd seen when we were at Donington. They weren't behaving exactly how I wanted to. If you had a bit of steering lock on, the down changes didn't come quick enough. And if you're in a straight line and the RPM weren't dropping below 4 grand, you couldn't get the gears to go, which were a bit off-putting. You're pulling a paddle and trying to put some lock on, trying to get into a corner, and then you're in a gear higher than you want to be. When you go for the throttle to settle the car, it's not there, or at least you're at too low of an RPM to get what you want. So we'd not done that, so we knew with what we were doing on Friday, we were compromised on power. We were 50, 60, 70 horsepower down from where we wanted to be. And the gearbox weren't behaving. We weren't having any clutch slip issues. It was going up and down the gears nice and smooth and pretty quick. We'd not got the launch control enabled again, but we didn't really need that for the ring. But the gears, that were the most annoying thing when we were at Donington, and we'd not had a chance to fix that. So a little bit frustrating, but we just said, the car's in one piece, let's take it. So Scott set off on his way. If you look at the last video that we did, and there's a little fastest lap video before that as well, and we'll try and get the full ring lap videos in there, at least the interesting ones. The car drove absolutely fine. I think all we did to it while we were there, Scott bled the brakes when we got to the Nürburgring in the best workshop you could ever imagine. And the guy who runs it there, Sabine Schmidt's husband, he got Paul to be his bitch, and he was pumping the pedal while he was bleeding the brakes rather than Paul doing all the hard work. So Paul were in a bit of a difficult position because he likes to be the one in charge, but he got told what to do by somebody who knows what he's doing, so he were happy. But it's a crazy place. So literally all we've done all weekend, set the tyre pressures, bled the brakes between Spa and the Nürburgring, and then we've just been smashing it around all weekend. Well, weekend, whatever you want to call it. It were absolutely fine. The car drove amazing. We had some people obviously behind us on track, following and saying the car looked good. Really good pace, lacking a little bit of power, which we knew about, not kind of behaving as we'd expect sometimes, but Misha drove the car and he was really impressed. He drove the Citigo as well, which will be a separate thing, but we thought he'd be more impressed with the Citigo, but the A5 is what impressed him. He was really happy. We did a really good lap time, 8:18 I think it works out at, so watch the full lap if you want to see how hard you have to drive to get them sort of times with this sort of power. You're pushing really hard. But the car was perfect. We couldn't have asked more. We'd have loved to have had the extra power, but it weren't necessary, definitely not. Scott did a good lap time, I think probably his third or fourth lap he's ever done around the Nürburgring, did an 8:40 in this, and really happy with that, obviously. Being there now, we know that knowledge of the track is the most important thing. You go around in a old bag of crap and do a better time than we probably did. There'll be loads of people telling us that they've done a better time than we have, but it's the first time we've gone. Definitely going to go back, but we're going to go back with some interesting plans and interesting ideas. If we do, we're not just going to go back just to see how fast we can take the car. That's not what we're going to build this for. So yeah, we've done that. Really happy with the car. Got back, put it on the dyno, sorted the EGT sensor out, and then this is where we are now. So the red lines, the red curves, that's where we are now. So 424.4 horsepower and 600 foot-pound of torque at 2700 RPM. So exactly where we'd want to be. A little bit over where I'd expect this turbo to have been doing, at least on a dyno dynamics. We've been claiming that they'll do 400. There's a few people put them on the cars and they've got 400 from them on different dynos, but this is the first dyno dynamics graph that we've seen that's broken 400. We've tried the water meth, and because now we're at the point where the turbo's limiting us air-wise, I think we're at 2.3 bar of boost now. we're not making any more power putting the water injection with the methanol in there. It's not making any difference to power. So, really happy what it's doing. If we'd had this, is it going to take us 20 seconds off a lap time? I don't think so. But we'd have definitely noticed it on the long uphill sections where we sat there just at 125 mile an hour for like 20 seconds, where it'd have been nice to be doing 130, 135. But how much that'd translate to a time at the ring, I'm not too sure. The tyres and suspension, there's a little bit more to be had if we go a little bit more aggressive on the setups. We tamed it down a little bit, we tamed it down a bit too much. But we'll talk about that in the next video. So, we'll get on the road, do the performance box logs. I'm hoping that we can do the login and verify using the V-Box video that the performance box and the V-Box are very similar in comparison, and then we'll probably just do all the timing in the V-Box video, because then we can make it look nice and make it look a bit pretty. So, this is the first time I've driven the car since it came back from the Nürburgring. We did really well there, really happy with the car. Some stuff that we could have done with fixing before we went, but as I said earlier, there were lots of stuff outstanding the day after we meant to have been finished, so don't know what we could do about that. We just did best with what time we had. Everybody mucked in and we got it sorted. There's a lot of people been asking about the brakes and why we changed them. We found that the S5 ones are absolutely fine on the road, no problems whatsoever. We didn't really see a need to change them. But obviously, with so many people, we experience as well saying, why not get something a bit bigger? We decided to change them. And like I said, the S5 brakes, no problem on the roads whatsoever. Never got them to fade. Obviously, pad choice is a big thing, but we never got them to fade anyway, so we weren't too worried. But the RS5, RS6, RS4, whatever calipers they are, they were faultless when we were at the Nürburgring, so we're glad to have had more braking force than we required, rather than it being the other way around. And literally, during the trip, it was the only thing that we had to do at all with the car. We never had to plug it in to clear any fault codes or to do anything. We just literally had a OBD dongle that's just in here next to ferry. We just had an OBD dongle in there, log into our phones to make sure that we weren't getting too hot or anything like that. All this crazy modded Hyundai's overtaking me at the slowest rate I've ever seen. But the temperatures didn't get too crazy. Obviously, if you watch the previous videos, you'll see that the early part, we didn't have the cooling that we wanted while we were at the track. So it's not ideal. But we didn't really see anything too crazy. We got the lower temp thermostat in there and the oil cooler. They're probably the most important ones. The gearbox didn't seem to give us any problems. The oil were getting hot at times. The main time you could tell that the gearbox oil were getting hot were after a session you'd pull up and put it into park rather than putting the handbrake on, so you didn't burn the brakes out. But when you did that, sometimes it didn't really want to come out of park. It was a bit stiff. So we didn't get any fault codes from it, to be honest, so it can't be that bad, but just a little bit stiff, didn't want to come out of park. But other than that, the car were absolutely perfect. We couldn't ask for more, to be honest. Not for the first time we'd ever been to the Nürburgring, and the first time we'd ever put something as big and heavy as this on the track, really. So we knew it were going to be decent when we were at Donington Park, but obviously there's a reason why manufacturers take all their cars to the Nürburgring to get them ready for the road, because you've got a lot of bumps. It's not the most uneven surface. Croft, before it will resurface, was probably bumpier. There's a lot of undulations, and that really showed you where the damping was, and we know the dampers are not perfect on this, but I think it's a little bit stiff on the little bumps, like I can feel it now, and it were a little bit soft on the really big dips when you are really getting the compression there. So there's stuff to improve on this. The tyres, we said before, the tyres were compromised for the Nürburgring. We're back on the road tyres now, but at the Nürburgring we had NS2Rs, which if it had spotted with rain or had an heavy downpour, while everybody else was scratching around trying to find somewhere to sell them some better tyres, we'd have just been happy enough on the NS2Rs. So it is what it is. But Misha, who drove this, and the Citigo, he says there's at least 20 seconds in this car if we get the power to where we are now, which is 419, I think we did 420, something like that. We're in 420s almost anyway. If we got that little bit of power back, the consistency for the power and the stickier tyres, then he had no reason why we wouldn't be down into the sevens, which is pretty respectable for something that Scott's worked it out to about 1,500 miles or something like that, but it basically works out at 20 laps of the ring, 4 laps of the GP track, 30 odd laps of Spa, plus driving there and driving back. This car's averaged 20 miles per gallon. On track it were averaging about 10, but obviously you need to bear in mind that like the M4s that we went with and some of the other guys that were there, they probably filled up 2 or 3 times as much as we did, and obviously they're having to put super special 99, 102, whatever petrol in there, which is even more expensive. We can just run any diesel, cheapest place you can find, and that's all we do. We didn't bother getting anything special. We didn't really see any need to do that, so really happy. And all the guys, they're all really, really into the performance stuff, and they were shocked at how good this A5 was. They really, really didn't expect it to be doing what it were doing. So anyway, while the bypass is free, we'll do a little launch and see how we get on. So when we've done another go the other way, just to verify what we've done, which I've just seen, which we've got the HD2 and the performance box in here at the minute. But when we've done the other run the other way to verify what's happening and make sure what we're seeing on there's accurate, talk a little bit more about the changes that we've made to the gearbox as well, because one of the, other than the tyres and the inconsistency in the power, one of the other things that gave us some trouble at the Nürburgring, which it gave us some trouble at Donington, and we tried getting round to fixing it, but everything just got in the way, so it is what it is. But when we did all the stuff that we did at the Nürburgring and Donington, we realised that we're losing tons and tons of time just because you're going into a corner and pulling the paddle, and you didn't get the gear that you wanted when you wanted it, so that weren't helping stabilise the car and give us what we needed. So I'll show you when we've done this next one. We'll see if we can play around the paddles and get it to do what we need to do. So launch control were working last time, so if it works this time. So that says 3.8 this time, which, to be honest, I didn't get the best of starts because I had to turn a little bit, because I weren't as straight as I'd want to be. So we'll when we get back when we get back, we'll have a look at the data, and if it looks compromised, we can do it again. But the main test that we wanted to do with this, because we've had such, not inconsistencies, but what it tells us on the display there and what it shows in the race tools is two totally different things. I wanted to verify if this HD2 would give us a more accurate representation of what we're getting. So if it does, we don't need to use a performance box anymore, and we can forget about that. But that's good just to throw in, and away you go, because this HD2 takes a little bit more time to get in, and it's borrowed from our track car. So yeah, this is the quickest this car's ever been anyway. Like I said, this is the first time I've driven it since we came back from Germany, and we'd not got the power that we wanted when we were there, so ridiculous how much faster it is, to be honest. Under 4 seconds to 60 is very good. So talking about earlier with the paddles, like now we should, this will be the first time I've pulled them, but we should just pull it and we get a gear. Pull it again and we'll get a gear. Pull it again and get a gear. It's not letting me have that last one. So that's because, there we go, because it did not want to put you, we've got it set on this car, yeah, and it's letting me do the down changes whilst I've got lock on, so I'll try and put as much lock as I can on. Yeah, it gives me it again. Shut up, you noisy car. So that was the main problem when you're on the track and you want to give it some. Getting all the gear changes that we could want. Yeah, tons better now. So before you were turning into a corner, and because you had some lock on, it wouldn't let you have a down change, or because it didn't want to rev the engine past 4,000, it won't let you have a down change. So now we've lifted that up to 5. I mind where it feels on the road, I might change that to maybe $6,000 or 5.5, just because the only time that you want to pull it and you get the gears is when you're really braking hard. So by the time you've pulled the gear, the gearbox has said, yeah, you can have it, and then you've got the gear, you're going to be below that anyway. You're going to probably be below $5,000 anyway. But obviously, at the time you're pulling it, the engine's not happy. The gearbox is not happy to let you rev the engine past 5. It's probably still a little bit too delayed. So we'll keep playing. And before we took this to Donington, and before we took it to the Nürburgring, we just thought this was going to be a fast road car. We weren't going to really be bothered about running it on track. Now we've done what we've done, we've achieved the economy we've achieved, the brakes work so well, it drove so nice on track, the gearbox is behaving pretty much, because everything just worked better than we expected. The handling, there's work to do still, not tons, but little bits, mainly alignment stuff, but it was so good that we're probably going to sell the M4 that we bought to go sort of touring and track days. Probably going to sell that and just use this, because it's just worked so well. So I'll get back to the office, have a look at the data. We'll have a look at some of the data that we got while we're on the autobahn as well, because we got the cameras rolling then, and we'll see if we've got some decent acceleration, because everybody always wants to know the sort of 100 to 200 kilometres, which is 62 mile an hour to 124 mile an hour. People always want to know what that is. So we've got some of that data, and yeah, we'll get that all put in the video as well. So thank you anyway, and hopefully you've enjoyed this one.